The first year, the man in the uniform. This happened a few years back on Halloween night in Baltimore. I was 12, old enough to feel the first intoxicating rush of unsupervised freedom, yet young enough that a bulging sack of fun-sized chocolates still mattered. My friend, Sam, and I had spent weeks charting the optimal trick-or-treating route, a clandestine map of the neighborhood's good houses. The air was crisp, carrying the faint, acrid smell of burning leaves and cheap costume plastic. The evening was a predictable, sweet blur. Our bags were halfway full when the first signs of the night's slow death appeared. Around 9 o'clock, porch lights began winking out, one by one, like silent admissions of defeat. Sam suggested we call it quits, but I, driven by a greedy, childish zeal, insisted on one last foray. We agreed on a final, remote cul-de-sac. Our section of Baltimore was generally well lit, but this specific loop seemed swallowed by a profound, starless gloom. Streetlights were scarce, and with most houses now cloaked in darkness, the shadows were thick and distorting. It was a perfect, claustrophobic bowl of black. As we moved into the inky depths of the turnaround, a figure emerged from the gloom. It wasn't a fellow candy seeker, this was the heavy, methodical tread and silhouette of a grown man. Anxiety pricked at the base of my neck. As he drew closer, the shadows momentarily receded, revealing the unmistakable form of a police officer. We exchanged a nervous glance. He stopped us as we passed, introducing himself with a tired, practiced smile. He then pointed a gloved finger down the road, toward a house nearly invisible in the darkness. "See that place?" he murmured, his voice low and conspiratorial. "An older guy there has been trying to lure the little ones inside." He explained that a call had come in, which was why he was patrolling in the first place. The whole exchange felt wrong. Throughout his briefing, he kept gesturing vaguely into the darkness, repeating, "My cruiser's just over there," as if the location of his vehicle was the one thing grounding him to reality. Then came the request, a chilling non sequitur that slammed the brakes on our nervous tolerance. "Look," he leaned in slightly, his face obscured by the brim of his cap. "If I knock, he won't open up. He knows better than to talk to a cop." He paused, letting the silence settle. "But you too. If you just knock for a bit of candy, he'll open the door. Once he tries to pull you in, I'll jump out of the bushes and catch him red-handed." Sam and I were struck dumb. Even as 12-year-olds, the logic was repellent. This supposed officer of the law was asking a pair of children, kids he'd just met, to serve as human bait for a predator. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Finally, he shattered it with a brusque impatience. "Come on, we need to do this quick." I wanted to tell him no, to yell the absurdity back in his shadowed face, but the words withered on my tongue. A sudden, welcome noise broke the tableau, the loud, careless chatter of a large group of teenagers rounding the street corner. The officer immediately stiffened. "Be right back," he snapped, his voice losing its forced casualness, "Don't move." Then, he vanished into the dark, pointed in some random, nonsensical direction. When the boisterous teenagers passed us, one of them, a girl with vibrant pink hair, stopped. "Did you guys know that creep?" she asked, her concern clear. We quickly recounted the whole bizarre, chilling request. They immediately agreed the situation was profoundly weird and offered to walk us home. We didn't need a second invitation. We never spoke of it again for years. But the memory is a haunting echo. Was he a real cop? I still don't know, but the older I get, the more convinced I am that he wasn't. But even if he was, the thought of a person in a position of trust attempting to leverage two kids into a potential death trap remains unforgivable. His true motives, cop or not, are still a shadow that follows me through the streets of Baltimore. The Clowns Who Came Back. Halloween, 2016. I was 23, inhabiting my own small, two-story house in Baltimore. That year was coated in a uniquely pervasive layer of anxiety, thanks to the national hysteria over so-called killer clown sightings. Many parents had elected to keep their children inside, abandoning the old traditions. My night was planned to be uneventful, handing out candy with my friends, Declan and Callum. As the stream of trick-or-treaters slowed to a trickle, the three of us gravitated, as people do on Halloween, to telling stories of things that go bump in the night. Declan, ever the agitator, brought up a local, haunted house down the block. "We should check it out," he urged, "see if it's actually scary." I felt I was past the age for amateur spooks, but Declan insisted this was the real deal, not some lame school fundraiser. Eventually, curiosity and a little boredom won out. It was a mere 5-minute trek. The place, I noted silently, was utterly underwhelming, a hastily arranged mess that screamed bored teenagers with a budget. Inside, however, the crowd was thick. The scares were generally pathetic, a few obligatory jump scares were the extent of the terror. Until we encountered 3 clowns. Their costumes, I had to concede, were disturbingly good, detailed and clearly time-consuming. What unsettled me wasn't their initial scare, but their follow-through. Every other costumed actor would leap out, execute the scare, and reset for the next victims. These 3 did not. They kept pace with us, a silent, unnatural procession that lasted until we were back out in the cool night air. It put me on edge, but I kept my mouth shut. We returned to my house. Shortly thereafter, Callum and Declan headed home. About 30 minutes later, the doorbell chimed. It was approaching midnight. Way too late for legitimate trick-or-treaters. I ignored it. A minute later, I heard the subtle, muffled crunch of footsteps in my backyard. My initial annoyance at what I presumed were pranking teenagers turned instantly to unease. I flipped the back porch light on and off in a furious, rhythmic pattern, a silent warning to disperse. Peeking out the window, the movement caught my eye. 3 figures in clown costumes were scrambling back into the deep shadows. My blood went cold. The clowns. The ones from the haunted house. But how? Unless they hadn't stopped following us on the walk home. I bolted upstairs and sent a panicked text to the group chat, "Guys, I think those 3 clowns from the haunted house were just in my backyard." Callum's immediate response was a single, frantic command, "Dude, call the cops." A report for trespassing seemed prudent, at the very least. As I was dialing 911, the world shattered. A heart-stopping crash erupted from downstairs, the unmistakable sound of a window breaking. My phone was still ringing. I scrambled, locking my bedroom door and burrowing into the dark recess of my closet. When the operator answered, I forced the words out in a ragged whisper, "Men in clown masks, they just broke in." I was told to stay hidden and on the line. Time dissolved. Then, the creak of floorboards. Slow, deliberate footsteps ascending the stairs. My breathing became a frantic, impossible thing, ragged and loud in the absolute silence. The terror was an endless, taut wire, only cut when the blessed, wailing shriek of Baltimore police sirens filled the street outside. Immediately, I heard fast, retreating footsteps downstairs and the final thump as they fled out the back door. I met the police downstairs, explaining their escape route. The 3 clowns were gone, swallowed by the night. Because of the masks, they'll likely never be identified. All that remained was a broken kitchen window. They hadn't taken anything. The chilling implication of that fact still hangs over me. They weren't burglars, they were after something much, much worse. Why me? I still don't know. The motionless watcher. This memory dates back a while. I was 14 on that Halloween night in Baltimore. We knew we were pushing the acceptable age for trick-or-treating, but my friend, Sam, and I agreed, one last run. Our neighborhood was wealthy and sprawling. The drawback was the acreage. It took a mind-numbing 3 minutes to walk between driveways. The upside? The residents were notorious for handing out full-sized candy bars, attracting a swarm of outsiders every year. After about an hour of this long-distance sugar hunt, we approached a peculiar house. It was markedly older than the neighboring mansions. In the driveway sat a nondescript, old white van. Despite its age, the lights were on inside, and a few meager decorations suggested they were participating. We rang the bell. The door was opened by a middle-aged man wearing a cheap ghost face mask and costume. We were initially thrilled. Costumed residents often meant premium treats. We chirped, "Trick or treat," and the figure wordlessly dropped the candy into our bags. We mumbled our thanks and started to leave, but his voice, flat and uninflected through the mask, stopped us. "Wait," he said. "I have more for you, but you need to come inside while I get it." It was an odd request, but 14-year-old logic is dominated by the allure of free candy. We stepped inside. The immediate atmosphere was jarring. The hallway was dominated by a full wall plastered with Polaroid photos. Dozens of them. All were pictures of different children in Halloween costumes. The man reappeared from around a corner, holding a Polaroid camera. He explained that he loved seeing all the costumes and liked to take a photo of the kids every year. Sam and I exchanged a sharp, immediate glance of pure alarm. The sugary excitement curdled into an instinctual fear. "We can't," I said quickly, lying through my teeth. "Our moms are waiting for us in the car." The excuse was baseless, but the request, and especially the wall of staring faces, felt intensely creepy and violated a fundamental boundary. The man didn't respond. He simply stood there, his ghost face mask looming, utterly silent and motionless as we backed out of his house. As we hurried down the long driveway, I risked a glance back. The front door was still open. The man was still standing there, perfectly still, watching us. It was a chilling statue of a figure. We tried to shake it off, dismissing the encounter as just a weird, socially inept adult. 30 minutes later, it was a faded memory. Then we saw it. Parked on the street ahead was a lone, white van. The color, the age, the make, it was too familiar. A wave of dread washed over us, confirming a horrifying suspicion. As we walked past, the engine gave a soft thunk as it shifted from park into drive. It began to slowly, inexorably, inch along behind us. We tried to rationalize it. Given the distance between houses, it was common for parents to drive their kids to the next stop. But when we reached the next house, the van quietly parked a distance behind us. We waited. And realized, no children emerged. It had to be the man in the ghost face mask. "Dude, what do we do?" Sam whispered, his voice cracking. We were barely 10 minutes from my house. "Run for it," I breathed. The moment we broke into a sprint, the van accelerated. Our fear solidified into cold, hard certainty. He was following us. I looked back. The van was right there, a low, white blur. We couldn't outrun a vehicle on the road. Instinct took over. We veered violently, scaling a low fence and scrambling across a dark, uneven field that ran to my backyard. We burst into the house and slammed every lock home. We had lost him. The encounter was deeply disturbing. It remains the most chilling thing I have ever lived through in Baltimore, and it was the last time I ever went out for candy. Really scary stories, every day. Subscribe, like if you like, turn on the bell so you don't miss new videos.